Okay, today we're going to look at this Pendleton men's sweater. It needs elbow patches, and this is a heavier sweater. It's a zippered front sweater, no buttons, just a zipper. And the fabric's a little heavier, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand sew the patches, and I'm using beige corduroy fabric. And here you can see the Pendleton label. Made in China. It's a little bit of a heavier sweater, and it's a really nicely constructed, very sturdy knit. And the client that brought it in wanted to put elbow patches. He didn't want it repaired, or rather he didn't want me to re-knit it. He just wanted elbow patches, so that's what we're gonna do. And here you get a better idea of what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to start out by measuring the hole because I want to make sure that my patch fits nicely over it. So I measure how long it is, and it's about 4.5 inches. So my patch has to be at least 4.5 inches. Of course, I'm going to make it to be about 6. Okay, I cut out my patch and I pin it like this because the first thing that I did, actually, as you can see here, is I stitched around it about 1/4 inch, and then I hand sewed it. But I pinned it first, pressed it, and then I sit it on top of the elbow patch and I hand stitch it. Here's another one. This one is suede. This one had elbow wear, different sizes, and in slightly different places. So one's a little higher, one's a little, as you can see, well, maybe, I don't know if you can tell very well in the video, but both sleeves were worn a little differently. One had a little bit more wear on it than the other, and so the patches wound up being one slightly higher than the other. So here I'm using Aleene's leather and suede glue, and all I'm doing is I'm just putting dots of glue on the leather side of the suede, and that's just to hold it into place while I sew. Now this is important because it's going to keep your suede patch in place. So after I glue it down, I let it sit for a while, let it dry, at least a half hour, more if you can. And this is just to ensure that it doesn't slip while you're sewing. And you see it's getting dry there. I would still wait a little bit more before I start sewing it on. And here I'm doing the other side. You can't put pins in suede or leather because once you do, that hole is there permanently. And even though it would be a small little hole, you just don't want any because you're still going to have to stitch over that. So the best bet is to just glue it down into place. And here I am. Okay, and I think the left sleeve was slightly higher, but again, that's because of the wear, the way the sleeves were worn. That one that I'm padding, that has the most wear, I believe. You can probably see in the video. Okay, and there I've stitched it on. And that's a better photo of the wear. It's a little bit lighter. This is yet another sweater, and this one, again, they have different size holes. I'm not sure why. Well, I mean, I guess depending on how you sit when you're working. I think this client told me he works with computers, so he's probably at a desk all day, and he did mention that the chair that he sits in has arms, so I guess that's where the wear came from. But again, I measure it. On this one, I also used suede. So here's the leather side. I put glue on it, hold it down, And there's the dabbing. You don't need to put a whole lot of glue. Just little, dab it on there. And here I'm just, making sure. But you don't need a lot. Just a little bit. Glue it down. Wait till it dries. And then you can start sewing. And on the first one, the reason I use corduroy, because the client requested that I can use suede or corduroy. He's left it up to me, and he wasn't particular about which sweater had what. Here's the finished product, and it's done. There's a close-up. Now, when I stitch extremely close, like an eighth, if that, to the end. An eighth to a 16th, somewhere in between there. So about 3/32 seconds. I would actually say it's 3/30 seconds, but hey. And there it is. And when you're working with leather and suede, it's natural, so you're going to have some irregularities in it. And that's just, there's no getting around that. This one's a Levi sweater. The other one was a Gap sweater. And the first one was, now these two sweaters were thinner, but the first one, the Pendleton, that was a very thick sweater, so I didn't want to stitch on top because it would look like it was padded, whereas these, they just, the knit was thin enough that it just looks like it's just sewn in, which is what it was. Now, were these a pain to get stitched on? Yes, they were, because I didn't want to take the sleeve apart. I just pulled the sleeve through, and from there I went ahead and stitched it. But when I stitched it, as I stitched it, I had to pull the sweater, the sleeve, I had to pull the rest of the part that I wasn't sewing. I had to pull that away from the center so that it didn't get caught up in there. Because if you do it that way, it can easily get caught up with the rest of your stitching, and then it's going to look sloppy. You have to take it apart, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so here's a final look at our 3 sweaters. There's the suede patch. It's a close-up. The other elbow. And that's that. Okay guys, there's 3 sweaters with elbow patches. I don't know how to open up the comment section. I'm still new at this, trying to figure everything out. So when I do, I will do so. Thanks for watching. Bye.